Why, in particular, the foster youth community seems to have a higher percentage of transitioning youth? Can you please expand on that?
Okay, so I wasn't aware of this when I first began my activism in this regard, but it was probably about 2 years ago that I was made aware of a talk that one Dr. Wallace Wong had given in the Vancouver Public Library here in British Columbia. Dr. Wong is probably the leading gender specialist in British Columbia in dealing with children who have gender identity issues. And in his talk, he revealed that he had 1,000 child patients in his practice, but he also noted that of his 1,000 patients, 500 of them came from the Ministry of Child and Family Development. Now, we don't know exactly how those numbers break down in terms of how many are actually foster kids and how many are, say, otherwise being taken care of by the ministry, or what the actual numbers are, because he won't respond. But for half of his kids to be from the ministry was startling to me. I mean, that is way out of whack. If you take the 500 number that Dr. Wong has released, and you compare that to the number of kids who are in care in British Columbia, which is around 6,500 or so at that time, it accounted for 7.7% of all children in government care were identifying as transgender, compared to about 0.5% in the regular population. That is an alarming number, and that really sort of motivated me. That was the point where I said, okay, we need a government inquiry into what is going on here.
And you have personal experience being in the foster system yourself. There could be a personal component to having concern with children who are in that, for lack of a better word, in that system. What would you like to see happen here? I know you've made inquiries. Have you had responses back from the BC government prior to your call for a national inquiry?
There's basically a wall that has been set up to sort of to hold off any sort of inquiries into this subject. The government doesn't really want to address this. People who are familiar with me will know that I have been deplatformed and shut down and censored left, right, and center because they don't want this information getting out to the public generally, which is why I appreciate being on your show here. So the government has tried at every opportunity to ignore this subject, and when we look at the inquiry that we called for in our petition, this is yet another example of them just sort of hand-waving this away and not wanting to deal with the serious issues.
Okay,
like
when you say, sorry, when you say the government has tried to ignore you at every opportunity, what do you mean? Like, you've actually asked them, hey, what's going on here? Can I see some stats and figures? And you get nothing? Like, what are you saying here?
Okay, so together with the people who I work with, we have, over the past couple of years, we have sent out individual information packages and requests to every single MLA and MP in Canada, okay? Every single one. And we only got one response back from all of these information packets that we sent out. And we're talking about hundreds of MLAs and MPs, right? So there's no desire to respond to this. I talked to the Speaker of the House here in British Columbia and tried to get him on board in terms of, bring to the floor, finding somebody to bring to the floor this issue to start a debate and maybe get an inquiry provincially. And whereas initially these numbers alarmed him like they alarmed everybody else, and he said, okay, this is something we certainly need to have the government take a look into. After sort of agreeing that he was going to do that, he went away and talked to somebody. And 2 days later, he came back and said, yeah, I know I said that this was a serious issue that we needed to get into, but I've talked to somebody and I've decided there's nothing to cover here and I'm not interested. And that was pretty much it. Okay,
in the 30 seconds we have left, unfortunately, really quickly, why is it concerning to you that there are 50% of representation in, say, this Dr. Wong's practice are transitioning or considering transitioning?
Because this is an overrepresentation. So maybe as many as 1 in 10 foster children are identifying as transgender. And many of these kids go on to use highly toxic drugs like Lupron and synthetic hormones that will sterilize them for life and cause other serious permanent health changes. And when you look at the percentages in foster kids, as an example, and autistic kids, it looks like they are victimizing our most vulnerable kids and turning them into lifelong pharmaceutical customers.